Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Light Council series, the show where we're having enlightened conversations to help awaken the light within and help elevate the world. I'm your host, Elizabeth Planson, and I am so excited to have my guest Chris here to share his magic, his work. I know we're going to have a lot to talk about today, so I just want to get right into it. So, Chris, I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and how you love to serve others.
Thank you, Beth, for having me. It's great to be here. And I am I'm half Swedish, half Hungarian, and that is kind of a theme in my life to be a bridge builder between worlds. So
Hmm.
in various ways, I've been studying balance and living balance between sometimes opposites, and that is really at the core of what I do in many different ways, whether it is between different perspectives or between different hemispheres of the brain or in relationship with other people, like to find both our individuality, but also find how we can communicate. And basically, it's on three levels. There is the individual level, like how can we be harmonious individuals? And there is
Hmm.
a relational level. How can we, exist and coexist in harmony? And then the third level is basically how can we as humans be in harmony with nature, with the world, with the surrounding world that we all
Yeah.
live in. And in these times, where polarization is so prevalent, I think that what we really need is to find ways to bridge polarization, whatever form or shape it takes. And that's really what my work is about.
I love that so much. It's reminding me of a conversation we had when we first met about the separation, right, of the different kind of people, right? And it could be anything. And specifically, I think what if I recall correctly, what came up in our conversation was the difference of like spiritual versus non-spiritual people, right? Like, or higher consciousness versus non-higher consciousness. And when you kind of you go on this journey, right? You have this spiritual awakening and you've kind of seen the light, you see things in a different way, and now you no longer relate to those people that you used to be really close with and friends, right? And, that are quote unquote not spiritually awakened, right? And so it could be difficult to then, how do you bridge that right back to that and want to be in that? And it was really kind of even eye opening for me, right? Of like that we can still have these harmonious relationships no matter even still, right? Like, and we can interact with each other in a different way. So maybe you can speak a little bit about that kind of separation once you shift and change in your own being, right? In your own consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very much at the heart of the matter. In your introduction, you used the word light in different ways several times. And of course, there is the light, and once we see the light, it's like, wow, our lives change and we really sort of transform to a higher level. But then the other side of light is shadow. And as Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, talks a lot about this shadow work, what is that actually? And I think, as someone said, I don't remember who it was now, but if you think you're so enlightened, go and spend a week with your mom. And I think that is something that kind of cuts to the core of the matter. Now we're approaching Christmas and when we're recording this, and I think a lot of people spend time with their loved ones. In Sweden, where I live, there is an expression: "The relatives are the worst," släkten är värst, which basically means that you can get along with other people more easily than the relatives. And why is that? And I think basically it's because there is anytime we're triggered, it's not that someone else does something that has power over me unless I allow it. So the
Mm-hmm.
trigger could actually be seen as an invitation to look deeper and see, okay, so there are still some parts of me that I'm not really comfortable with. So rather than
Mm-hmm.
projecting that out to, oh, those people are so stupid or unenlightened or whatever you want to call them,
Right.
like, what is it in me that feels so strongly about this? What part of me can't I love right now? And to just stay with that uncomfortable feeling until some kind of resolvement uh, appears.
Yeah. So, but what would you say about a situation where, like, you've kind of shifted and grown and you understand like mindset is is really important and what you focus on is really important, and maybe the people that are in your life, relatives, friends, whatever it is, they are, maybe some people that, look at the negative side of life all the time or complain all the time, right? Or just talk about things, how things are going wrong, and all those things, and that brings your energy down, right? Because you're like, can you maybe talk about that? Like, I understand what you're saying totally, but also like, if I've healed this thing, right, and I know that these things that are happening in the outside world don't have to affect me, right? And I don't always want to go back and sit here and complain all the time and like be in that energy. I
Mm.
don't really know if that's a shadow in me per se. And of course, I don't have to let it bother me, but also I just don't want to be around that all the time. You know what I'm saying? So, like, can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure, sure. And I think another side of this is that it's really important to have healthy boundaries and
Hmm.
to be aware of our capacity, how much compassion can I have with another person? And our capacity is usually not unlimited unless we are, fully um, like whose capacity is unlimited. Even Jesus Christ on the cross says, God, why have you forsaken me? So, there is that. So at the end of the day, we have to be aware how much can we stay true to ourselves and be compassionate with ourselves. And I've had examples in my life where I felt, oh, this person is just so negative, and it doesn't matter that at some point I've had to separate myself, and it's like
Hmm.
this is not really working for me, because after all, any kind of relationship has to be mutually agreeable on some level. And of course, I think relatives are the one relationship that we don't choose, so then we have
Right.
to find a way to relate to that. But sometimes you also have to, you know take a step away and say, this right now I cannot be in this connection. But I think the important thing is to do it from the heart and not from a
Hmm.
judgmental position. It's because it's so easy to go into the mind. You mentioned mindset, and mindset is really important. But I think we need to align the mind with the heart and the body, because then we are actually true to our energy. And
Yeah.
from that space, we might arrive at the conclusion that no, this is a no. And that's an important part of the spiritual journey as well, to be able to say no. Like there's
Right.
some kind of, in some spiritual or kind of spiritual circles, I've encountered people who seem to say yes to everything, and then eventually the energy drains, and you're sort of like, whoa, what happened? I think being able to say yes and no are very important parts of the spiritual journey. Maybe they're not as, cool or etc., but they're really important to manage our energy.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that. That's really helpful. So, in like
Mm.
talking about polarization of, society and, the world, how can we navigate that a little bit better?
Yeah, that's the big question. And to be honest, I think that is the big problem that we are all living in right now as individuals and as
Hmm.
a society, with each other and in our relationship to nature. And all the other problems that we see are actually different symptoms and manifestations of this one problem of polarization. And it's very interesting because we can look at reality like we can perceive reality in many different ways, and it's important to remember that what we sort of how we describe reality is not the same as reality. Reality is complex, but one way of looking at reality is that there are polarities. Like,
Hmm.
you're a woman, I'm a man, so there is a polarity in that. There is day, there is night, there is polarities, and that's one way to describe reality. But polarizations, I use the distinction between polarities and polarization. And polarization, I mean, is when we kind of make it into us and them. So it's man
Hmm.
against woman, like
Hmm.
patriarchy or matriarchy, or it's political division, or it's warfare, or it's, man against nature, or whatever way it sort of manifests itself as like we're going against each other.
Yeah.
Then there is the polarization. Now, I think in some situations, competition, for example, can be good. Let's say in an athletic situation, if we're competing against someone else, that can really drive us to excellence. It's like, I'm gonna, work even harder. That's great. As long as we remember also to take into consideration that at the end of the day, we are one. We are one
Mm,
human family. We are one with nature. And as individuals, we are also one, so that we don't come into this conflict between the brain and the heart and the body. It's like there is this, do you want to follow your brain or your heart? I'm sure you've heard it. It's like a sort of an
yeah.
expression. I think that is very poor advice. You shouldn't follow your brain or your heart. That is a time to slow down and say, hey, wait on, hang on a minute. I'm not aligned. I need to align. When the brain and the heart and the body are aligned, then you're in a good position to move forward.
I really love that because yeah, it's so often, especially in spirituality, we hear often follow your heart, right? Like your heart is your guide. But
Yeah,
also like we did come here to be human, right? And experience all these things and we have this body that we also have to listen to. So having all three aligned together is so powerful. That's such a powerful point. So thank you for pointing that out. And also I really like how you kind of gave this definition of the polarization, right? Like being against each other, right? And it doesn't have to be that way because for me, what's coming up is like that just produces anger in my mind, right? Like anger and judgment about the other thing that we're comparing ourselves to, right? So remembering that we all are one and it doesn't matter where we are and we don't have to have this like butting heads or I'm better than or be better than or they're awful and I'm not kind of mentality, right? Or they're right and I'm wrong, right?
exactly, exactly. I have a song about that. If you want to be free, don't compare. If you want to be happy, don't compare. And if you want to see me, don't go there. Do, do, do.
I love that. Yeah, comparison is huge too, right? Like
It is.
especially in
It's,
anything, if achieving your
yeah,
goals, right? For me
yeah,
personally, I'll just say like if I compare myself to someone else in my industry and I'll be like, look how far they are and look where I am if they're further than I am and all it does is make me feel bad about myself, right? So it's not even just comparison about the other person, but yourself too, right?
yeah, yeah. I think it's a very common thing, and especially in this day and age with social media and everything, that like it sort of invites us to compare with others. But what do we know about them? It's like we get this projected image. When you choose what photos, it's like always a curated experience. What do you put in your Instagram feed or whatever? Like that's not reality. It's like if
Hmm.
you have met people, famous people, in real life, very quickly you realize, well, actually they're also just humans, and we all
Hmm.
are. We're all in this journey. So it doesn't really lead to anything. But comparing ourselves to ourselves can perhaps be motivating sometimes, like seeing, oh, right now I'm here, and if I look at what my life was like 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, how much has changed. It can be interesting to reflect in that way. But at the end of the day, it's easy to sort of get tricked into the mind's way of perceiving things and forgetting about our wholeness and our presence.
Yeah. I actually had a conversation with one of my friends the other day, and I don't know if this is on topic or not, but it just kind of it's about perception, right? Like how we perceive things or everyone perceives things differently, right? And it could be so much as a chair in your house, right? Like you could perceive that chair looking a certain way and being really nice looking and stylish or whatever, and then I can see it completely different. Like we're not actually seeing the same chair, and
Yeah.
I think it's awful, right? So like it's so interesting is like how that can be true. And do you believe that to be true as well?
Yeah, and even it reminds me of an experience I had the other morning when I woke up, and I was looking over at my desk, and there was a very strange object on the desk. It's like, what's that? And I was looking at it for quite a long time. And then eventually I got up and I looked at it, and it was a roll of toilet paper that I had put there. But from my bed, it just looked like, wow, I wonder what that is. But it has to be me who's put it there. So even we ourselves will perceive things differently in different situations because it's like the perspectives are always shifting. So
Mm,
rather than being attached to a certain way of viewing them, I think it's about shifting perspectives. It's about movement. It's like, okay, if I look at it from here, it looks like that. Like, and if I look at it from there, it's like that. You know, like that allegory about the five or four blind men who examine an elephant, and one holds the leg, and it's like, oh, the elephant is, it's like very sturdy, and another one catches the tail. No, no, the elephant is like a brush, and the third one goes to in the trunk. It's it's soft and squeezed, and then the third one, fourth one goes to the sort of side of it, and it's like, no, it's like a wall. You know, who's right? Well, they all describe a part of it, but
yeah.
they're blind, so they can't see the whole. And we're all kind of blind in a way. So it's like to come to a higher perspective and a higher state of mind. It really is also about letting go of what we already think that we know, so that something higher can come through us and see things in a different way.
Yeah, I love that so much. Like this has already been such a powerful conversation. I think we're only like 15 minutes in, maybe like 20. But like that's so beautiful and really also maybe like even excuse me, piggybacking on that, like releasing the judgment, right, of perception. So even if we perceive things differently, how can we maybe see it through their eyes, whatever it is, and with that compassion and understanding of where they're coming from, because a lot of perception has to do with past experiences, right? And like where they've been and what they've experienced, and these programs that they've picked up along the way. So how can we come from more of a place of compassion and understanding for their perspectives rather than judgment and placing blame or placing right and wrong on them, right?
Yeah, totally.
I love that. So talk to me a little bit about the nature aspect of this too. I would love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, so I mean, we hear a lot about climate crisis and climate change and biodiversity loss and all those kind of things. And I find I've met a lot of people who really want to do something about that, and that is understandable. But more often than not, it seems to be treated like a problem to be fixed. Like we
Hmm.
seem to treat everything like problems to be solved, like an engineer. And there is nothing wrong with that in itself, but it gives an incomplete picture because we are nature. We can't exist uh, separated from nature. Maybe as astronauts we can be on the space station for a while, but basically we really depend on nature. We need the air to breathe, which comes from the trees, and we need food, which grows from the ground. So it's really like we are really very much nature, but still we relate to it as if we're somehow separated. And I think the fact that so many people live in cities really exacerbates that because we're sort of distancing ourselves. If we're walking around in a city typically, we don't even touch nature. We're just walking around on concrete or asphalt and or in buildings, and it's like there are a lot of ways that we sort of get distance from nature, and I think that is very detrimental to our mental health and to our physical health and to our sense of oneness. And especially for spiritually minded people, the sense of oneness is so central. And I think one of those aspects, again, coming back to the body, like what is oneness for the body? Because all these different levels, the body, the heart, and the mind, have different ways of perceiving the world. And for the body, well, we are living on the earth. As the expression goes, you know, when we die, from dust to dust, ashes to ashes. Um, like we come from the earth and we return to the earth.
Yeah.
It's like a closed system. That's where we are. So all this separation again, it's a polarization between humans and nature, and that is really quite dangerous. And I think we really need to reconnect to nature, to our own nature, human nature, but also to Mother Nature.
Yeah. And so by doing so, what's coming through for me is if the more you actually allow yourself to feel that connection to the earth and Mother Nature, the more cognizant like you and aware you become of the actions that you're taking, right, on a daily
Yep.
basis when it
Yeah.
comes to the earth and what you're doing and how we're treating it, right? Because then you begin to feel that energy as well and knowing like even like, killing a bug, right? Like you become
Mm.
more empathetic to that and realizing that that is a energy of life too. And so I think that's really powerful that just to even point that out and become aware of it, right, is taking that time to feel the connection to the earth. And that's how we quote unquote fix it, right? We fix the problems is when more and more people become connected and aware of their actions that they're doing on a daily basis that is actually causing harm to our planet. Is that correct? Would you say that is correct?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I think that is the beauty. That's like the good news and the bad news, if you want, or the good news and even better news that we already have an individual responsibility. And we
Mm-hmm.
can actually, if we want to save the planet, we start with ourselves. I think if we approach it as a problem to be fixed somewhere else, we're never really going to solve anything. But if we start with like, okay, but how can I be connected? How can I, like going out and hugging a tree? It's a very, very powerful thing to do. It's
Mm-hmm.
grounding. It feels great. I love doing that, and
Yeah.
it's like it's healing for me and it's healing for uh, my connection with nature. And the more you sort of start to be aware of and pay attention to these things, this sensation that comes in the body from such a thing as hugging a tree, or for that matter, hugging another person. Uh, but the tree, in a way, the tree is better because if you hug another person, it's easy to kind of get lost into some kind of attachment. Oh, I want something from this person. I want something. And then you sort of start, getting to that. But with a tree, I mean, it's very unlikely that you start having sort of cravings for the tree. It's like, the tree is there. It's stable. It's been there
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, probably. If it's a big tree, it can be there for 100 years or hundreds of years. You can just stand there and hold it for a minute or two and just like, oh, I am
Mm-hmm.
here. I'm holding you and I'm being held at the same time. So I think
Yeah.
we do have this individual responsibility, and that is also such a great thing. So rather than feeling, I don't know what to do, well, the good news is you can start with yourself. And then you're
Yeah.
doing all the good work because we all have to heal within ourselves. We all have this separation within ourselves. Like there is this U2, I think it's a song by U2, the trenches are dug in our hearts. That's like, we are carrying the polarization within ourselves. And that's where the healing has to start, not by fixing other
Mm-hmm.
people, by, integrating ourselves. And then the more we do that, the more harmonious we're going to be in ourselves and thus in meeting other people and thus also in the world. And that's really like, uh, that's really at the core of my work. And this is my book, The Way of Fire. And it's really like a practical way to apply all those things, like,
Yeah.
the building the bridges, building the bridges in ourselves, between each other and between us and nature.
Yeah. That's so great. And it's just coming, I mean, there's so much to like unpack there, but like really for me, it's like that important piece of working on yourself first and then like the energy you emit, because again, we're all connected, right? We're all one, is going to help essentially raise the vibration of the planet. And that's a big piece of what I teach and what I, promote in my work, right? Like I am helping others raise to their purpose, elevate their vibration, because by doing so, that's how we save the world. Because everyone's like, I'm only one person. What can I do? Right? How can I save the planet? And I feel the same way. Like, how am I going to save the planet from XYZ? Right? But it starts with you, like you said. You raise your vibration, you raise your consciousness to the level of oneness. You're emitting this literally emitting energy, right? Positive energy, positive higher frequency to the world, and in its turn it's going to be felt by the world and everyone else. And so that's just so perfect. And It reminds me of, but you talking about hugging a tree reminds me of this crazy experience my husband and I had. We were hiking. We like to go hiking together. Um, and we saw this tree and it was like just I can't even explain. It was just like in the middle, in a forest, a very wooded forest. But it was almost like moving. Like it was like almost like moving, like the pattern of it was moving, and we both saw it, and it was so trippy. I was like, you see that? Like, can you see that? And he's like, I see it. And I was like, I have to go touch this tree. Like it was
Yeah,
incredible. I was like, the fact that we both saw this tree moving, right?
yeah,
It
yeah.
was so just so amazing. And I was like, it was like, because we were connected, right? Like, so connected in that moment that we were both able to see the same thing from this perspective of this living, breathing thing and feeling that connection to nature. So that was so powerful. So, yeah, definitely get out in nature, right?
Yeah, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And when you're saying that, I'm also thinking that perhaps, you're so close, and then, being together in this sort of higher state, we can also really elevate each other, like having this effect on each other. That's a
Hmm.
it's a beautiful way to interact
Yeah.
because we don't, and I think that is the one of the important things to remember that we don't have to do it alone. We're not supposed to
Hmm.
do it alone. Like of course, it feels overwhelming if I think that I'm going to carry the whole world on my shoulders. But if everyone, it's an invitation. We're all invited to partake and to collaborate and co-create this
Yeah.
beautiful world that we live on. And each person has it's an individual choice. And to remember that we are individuals and we are one at the same time. I think that is kind of where we're at as a humanity to actually build the bridge in ourselves between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. The scientist who lives in the left hemisphere who wants to understand things and reason, and that's a great part to have. But then there is also the right hemisphere, the holistic mind, the one that can see connections and which is always here and now. And to have those two online at the same time and working together, like that is the
Hmm.
beauty. That is where
Yeah.
creativity lives. That's the potential to elevate.
I love that. Thank you so much. So I would love to know, like, in your work that you do with people, like like what type of person do you work with, or what do they come to you for help with specifically? And, how do you work with others?
Well, I work with individuals and I work with groups, and I love both. I have done quite a lot of work with leaders in academia and in business. Um, it's a very individual journey, like everyone comes from where they're at. Typically, there is some issue, whatever it might be. And the first part of the process is to find clarity around that. And more often than not, this clarification process shows that what you thought was the problem was not the problem, but it was kind of a one layer. And then we work with
Mhm.
it, and then we realize, oh, but it's actually over here. This other thing is the underlying root cause, or maybe it's sort of one step further in the causality chain. So that's one part, like to find clarity. That's something I help people with. Another part is to find harmony. Like how can I
Mm.
be in harmony, whether with myself, with others? For example, in organizations, it's quite common that there are conflicts. And so
Mhm.
I've been called in to help in mitigating that, stakeholder management, or for example, there was I had a workshop with some people who've been trying to get along for a year, and it just couldn't really find out how to proceed. And we did a half-day workshop, and after that, the energy shifted, and it instead of sort of everyone fighting for themselves, it came to a place like, no, we want the same thing. So how can we make it happen? So it's like
Mhm.
this shift. So those are some ways. And then the third kind of entry point. So there's clarity, there's harmony. The third one is more about creativity. It's more about finding new ideas, new perspectives, new ways to look at things, whether it's innovation or just like be more creative. I worked with creativity basically my whole life. I'm a musician.
Hmm.
I've written songs since I was 5, and I worked with improvised theater and all those things. So I bring a lot in my toolbox, so it can really support people to either find clarity, to be more harmonious, or find more creativity. Yeah.
Yeah, so really up-leveling their lives and to be able to be happier and joyful and be able to handle, I think, relationships with more ease and flow, right? And just elevating their state of mind.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's there are some rather common things. A lot of people are searching for meaning in this
Hmm.
world and this time and age. So that can be one pain point. Oh, why am I here? What's the point? This existential dilemma. Another one can be like, but am I really loved for who I am, or is it just, what I project out, what I do? To
Hmm.
find that we are loved for who we are, no matter what we do. We are always loved for who we are. So that can be another place, like, am I really loved? Especially if you're very successful. Like, am I really loved for who I am, or do I
Hmm.
have friends just because I have success and money and fame? And
Yeah.
the third sort of pain point could be like feeling that something has stagnated, or it's like it's not really moving. And then usually there needs to be more play in your life. Play is a
Hmm.
great catalyst to get things moving. So we're not stuck in a rut, but it's like it's fun. Maybe we did something we really enjoyed, but then after a few years, like, it's not as fun anymore. So then something has got stuck. Maybe we're too complacent, or we're just like, so to get some spark in there, to catalyze something. So I'm a catalyzer and a bridge builder, really, in different ways.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this conversation and sharing your wisdom with us all and your work. And so, how can people get in touch with you or reach out, connect with you if they want to explore your work further or find your book? Of course, we'll put all of the links in the description below, but I would love to hear it from you as well.
Thanks, Beth, and thanks for having me. It's wonderful. I really enjoyed this conversation, I must say. And I have a website, ChristopherSigmond.one. I have a newsletter that you can sign up for on the website. And then there is my book, The Way of Phi, which is on Amazon, available in most parts of the world. And also, if there is also a way to just connect, have an exploration call, and see if there is a match of energies, share some ideas. I'm always open to that. So there is, again, my website. There is the possibility to just book a Zoom call. We'll have a half-hour chat and see, what's going on. Like, it's an exploration, and I find that this is a good place to start. So write in whatever is most important right now. So yeah,
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, thank you again for this conversation. I've so enjoyed it. And thank you for being a guest on the show.
thank you, Beth.
All right, everyone. We will see you next time on the Light Council. Take care and find all the links to reach out to Chris below in the description. See you next time.